people are making the decision to buy online now, on your social media channels, through your newsletter, through a podcast. That's where the emotional decision to purchase a product is happening. It's not happening on your website. No one actually cares about, I'm sorry to say this, but no one really cares about your website. They care about the content. That's where they connect with you emotionally.
You're listening to Going Deep with Aaron Watson.
Get down.
You're going deep.
Marco, welcome to Going Deep with Aaron Watson.
Thank you for having me, Aaron. I've been listening to a few of your podcasts over the last few months, and I'm excited to be here.
Did you have a favorite episode by chance?
Yeah, there was one where you had the robotic urban farming one, and Ryan Culp. Ryan Culp, I've been following him for a while.
He's great.
I know he was like out of your norm of like he called in for it, but it was a good podcast. He's such a contrarian voice just by being a dick that I like it. Like he's just like, he doesn't care what people think, and he doesn't actually want a following. He just wants to do his own thing, which is fascinating from like a marketing and brand perspective, that he can get so much leverage in the space, especially for his own businesses, while actually trying to stay small and contrarian and actually meaning it.
Yeah.
Which is great.
And for all the people he turns off, he's also engendering trust with the folks that aren't turned off by his voice.
Yeah, he's a fascinating case study.
Yeah. So we are not remote for this interview, and we are also not in Pittsburgh. We're in New York, in Elliot HQ. Mm-hmm. And before we start telling the story of how you came to be here and everything that led up to it, let's just start off for the listeners at home that are not familiar with Elliot. Can you explain what it is that you're building?
Elliot is an e-commerce platform. It's a global commerce platform. If you're thinking about traditionally selling online, you just put your product up and then you transact in a digital way. Elliot handles the whole commerce stack for you. So everything from transacting online, as well as providing you with shipping documents, commercialization forms for going cross-border, as well as everything to get through customs, making sure your customers see that in their own currency, in their own language, with their local fulfillment provider. Is literally, it sounds like we're doing a lot, but what it looks like to your customer and what it looks like to you is I can just sell my product and never have to worry about anything else. I don't have to worry about any of the logistics or the back office work. It just happens out of the box. It's a very turnkey solution. There are a lot of businesses that tout themselves as like the no-code easy thing. We're trying to really own that, and I can go deeper into what that looks like in the coming minutes. But essentially, we want you to just focus on your brand, focus on your audience, and focus on selling your product, and not have to worry about any of the other stuff that everybody says you need to be good at to run a business.
One more foundational element, you said no code. That is something that, once again, we know what that means, but for listeners at home that aren't familiar with that kind of trend and wave that's sweeping across the SaaS world right now, what is no code?
No code is a way to build systems inside of your business that don't require you to have a technical understanding necessarily. You have to think logically and piece some things together, but it's there are a series of tools, a suite of tools, no-code-like tools that allow you to say, when this happens, I want that to happen. I want to make my site look really nice, kind of like Squarespace, for example. That's a no-code visual build or no-code website builder, right? You can drag and drop things, upload images, but you don't have to write, and you don't need to know what HTML or JavaScript or go onto stackoverflow.com to figure out how these things work. Elliot is a no-code version of e-commerce, which provides you with everything you need to fulfill it as well.
And another analogy that I've seen to help explain this for folks is if you were to compare and contrast Canva and Photoshop. Photoshop requires a deep technical intensive understanding in order to use that software. Canva, out of the box, you can be making something visually stunning in a very short period of time.
Actually, so that's a great example. There's a company or a newsletter here in New York called FinTech Today. This guy I know, Ian Carr, he runs it. He writes about fintech, and he brought on this guy, Jack, to help him. And I didn't know. Jack hits me up on Twitter and says, hey, man, can we get on a call? I love how you're thinking about newsletters and content and stuff you're writing. Let's jump on a call. So I talked to him. I tell him about Elliot. A couple of days later, he says, hey, I signed up. I set up a merch store on Elliot, and I wrote a whole blog post about how I did it. And in there, he describes that it took him 3 hours to get a Shopify store kind of up and running, but it didn't have any of the products, and he wasn't able to make any transactions. In 3 hours, he kind of gave up. Then he went to Elliot at 1 a.m. and built a site, connected it to his print-on-demand service, which is Printify, which integrates directly into Elliot, and got it launched and on his domain in 30 minutes and actually processed a transaction and got paid for it.
Wow.
in 30 minutes. Later, I asked him, how old are you? I'm 16. It's a 16-year-old in Rhode Island that did this in 30 minutes. Now, some businesses have more complex use cases than print-on-demand T-shirts for their newsletter, but you don't need to be technical to be able to do this.
So one of the things that I see, a classic example of that happened relatively recently was Popeyes did like a version of Beyonce's apparel line that she dropped. And it's an unparalleled time in the history of like modern commerce and business that a place that sells chicken would also drop a clothing line. But it speaks to this desire for brands to kind of expand and reach their communities in new ways, but also to have the capacity because of the ability to very quickly get something manufactured, but also deliver it to their end consumer. That's only enabled by the internet. It seems like this, when I hear it, I think about being part of that incredibly low friction from idea to actual execution.
Yeah, this is the way that things are happening now in modern commerce. So generally, if you're thinking about any direct consumer brand that you fell in love with in the last 5 years, let's talk about maybe Warby Parker or Glossier or Away. These brands were created as brands. They didn't really have an audience or community when they started, but they were created as to evoke an emotional response. And then you went and acquired a customer on Facebook or Instagram or Google so that people would come to your site and buy your product. It was building a brand and then acquiring the customer after the fact. Things have shifted now to you have an audience. You have people that are already interested in what you're doing, and then you just need to give them the product that they've already emotionally committed to buying. So the ability to move fast is actually, right now it's a competitive advantage, but it will just be the way that things happen in the future. So for Popeyes, for example, Beyonce does a collaboration with Adidas, goes viral. Everybody's putting their videos up on Instagram about it. Awesome. Popeyes says, we can put out a line that looks similar to this that is chicken oriented or whatever it was, right?
Similar color palette, similar aesthetic.
And then they launch it. And within a week, now, whatever, it's not like the most aesthetically pleasing thing, but it shows that brands at scale can move quickly and start building out their commerce experiences overnight. Now, Popeyes has a whole team behind them. They can move quickly like this, but if you're a single YouTuber and you have a moment that goes viral, how do you capitalize on that in a day? Oftentimes you can't. You have to go figure out where you're going to get your product manufactured. You have to figure out what that's going to be. Then you got to put it up on a site and spend 3 to 4 hours with a developer telling them what it needs to look like, and then you got to figure out all the back office logistics. Elliot can help you get all that stuff set up in 30 minutes like the 16-year-old did. You know, he didn't have maybe a moment to capitalize on, but that's what Elliot is here to empower people to do, is be able to build their audience through Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and then drop their products, whether it's digital products or physical products, and be able to deliver them globally. Your audience online is no longer limited to your geography. If I have an Instagram account, they're not all here in New York. Everybody who follows me is in London, they're in Africa, they're in Asia, they're in Australia. Why can I not deliver a product to them? Why am I limited to my domestic region?
It's a big idea.
Yeah. It's a big idea.
Yeah. Before we, so this is already a relatively young company, but has a lot of excitement, a lot of hype, a lot of kind of evangelists and other characters around it. I want to talk a little bit about how you've manufactured that, created that, instilled that. But before we go there, let's take a couple steps back in your story, because another thing that's interesting is to be a part of such an exciting company. How does one come to be in such a place? That's part of the reason people listen. It's something that you can share with the audience. Mm-hmm. If we paint a picture, and if you don't think that this is the appropriate starting point, feel free to divert us. But you're a product manager at HomeAway.com. Mm-hmm. You decide to go and leave, start your own thing. What is the plan at that point in time?
What plan? No, I mean, so basically, I'll go a little bit further back.
Yeah.
About 10 years further back. I grew up in British Columbia, Canada. I was born there. Happened to be an American citizen too through my mom. So when I was 17, I decided to move to LA to do music. I wanted to be a rapper and a producer and a singer and all this. And about 2.5 years in, I thought, man, this is really hard. I have all these great relationships. I came up around a lot of artists that you probably know now, but I either didn't have the talent or the grit or even just like the vision for what I wanted to be. I was creative, but I wanted to build things I could iterate on. Music is hard to iterate on. You drop an album, you spend months or a year working on it, and somebody's like, I'm not really into hip hop. And it's like, well, all right, well, that was great. And you can't really iterate on that. At the time, my friend said, hey, I'm teaching a computer science course, and during his master's degree, you should check out this thing called Python. We're going to do it for the semester. I tried it, and 2.5 days later, I finished the whole course for the semester. I thought, okay, I guess I'm okay at this. So I went back to school, and in 2.5 years, finished my whole computer science degree while interning at a biomedical company in LA. Then went to CapitalOne as a product developer there, was between software development and product management, kind of floating in that space there. After that, I thought, okay, the guy who's making the decisions about what we're building is a product manager. I need to be doing that because I think I can make better decisions than him. He wasn't bad. I have my own taste of what I think product and what resonates with people. So after that, ended up through a couple articles I wrote, something went a little viral, and the CEO of HomeAway, he used to be the chief product officer at Expedia, saw it, said, hey, I want you to come work under me in the product team to build out the iOS and Android apps and help us launch globally. They're already global, but they want to fill out continue launching in India and Singapore and Australia and really market and build product features that speak to those audiences. Great. So I did that. The company's doing like $10 billion a year in sales at the point. I can help. I can add $500 million through my work, but those things take 6 months to kick off any project that could be meaningful. And I was like, I can't do this forever. So I quit. And this leads me to where we are now, as I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I landed up at a podcast startup called Castro. I was consulting there for a little bit. After 3 months, I started working with DTC brands in Austin and exhausted that group like pretty much instantly. There's not a lot of DTC brands there, but everybody else is here in New York. So I flew out to New York, had some meetings. I'd been writing threads at the time too. So on Twitter, I was like, well, I'm a product manager. I got to circle back to that. I'm a product manager. I see the world in the digital product space as a funnel, but you don't have a physical good at the end. There's no really heavy draw to get somebody to sign up for your product or pay you for it. So you have to make sure your advertising and your landing page and your copy on every one of these steps through the funnel makes sense and is telling the same story. So when they check out, they feel confident in what they're going to get, whether it's a SaaS product or it's a stay at a house in 2 months from now. You got to have that story told very clearly. So I was seeing everything from that angle. And then I go look at D2C brands and they're like, I've got a logo, I've got a color palette, and I've got a makeup kit. That's enough, right? And I'm like, well, it's not really enough. There's a lot more that goes in that. You have to tell a story. Why are your ads not saying the same thing as your landing page? Why is your unboxing experience nowhere near what you're promising in your product, right? And you see some of the best brands are doing this right now in D2C. So I would say that Away is doing a pretty good job at this. House, the aperitif here in New York, they're doing a great job of this unboxing experience that embodies the story and the spirit of their whole digital experience that you get. But not a lot of these brands were doing that. So I started consulting with them and helping them on digital strategy for communication. I didn't know that that's called marketing. I just thought, I'm a product manager. I have a technical background. I see things in a system.
Yeah.
Why is the system broken? During that time, I was writing these threads, writing them publicly, gained some following, and Sergio Villaseñor, the CEO of Elliot, reached out to me and said, hey, we should meet up, get on a call. I said, okay, cool. We vibed. When I came to New York, I invited about 8 other people to this dinner. And they're still good friends. They're either CEOs or founders of these D2C brands that are doing quite well, but we vibed at this dinner, and then over the next couple of months, Sergio asked me to come on as an advisor, then an angel investor, and then to do some consulting. And then before I knew it, I was the head of marketing and co-founder of Elliot, which is great because I love what it is. But the reason I was able to the reason I wanted to join was because all the advice I was giving to these small startups that were up and running, they thought, okay, well, I want to grow my business. I want to have all the strategy that you're providing to these big companies. How do I get that? And I said, if you pay me, you will be broke because I'm working with a lot bigger businesses that can afford my consulting services. You will lose all your cash flow for just working with me for a month. So I'm going to give you the simple advice. Build your audience, build your brand, understand your community, and shorten that checkout funnel. Nobody wants to go from a landing page through to the apparel section for men and then to t-shirts and then just give them what they want. When they see it on your site, click directly through to that and have them check out. And that's it. That's all you need. People are making the decision to buy online now, on your social media channels, through your newsletter, through a podcast. That's where the emotional decision to purchase a product is happening. It's not happening on your website. No one actually cares about, I'm sorry to say this, but no one really cares about your website. They care about the content. That's where they connect with you emotionally. So that was my advice. I was giving it for free. And then I met Sergio and got a closer look at what Elliot is, how it powers global commerce, aligned very directly with my thesis of the future of direct-to-consumer brands. And I thought, okay, this is what I need to be giving people, not my advice. Go sign up for this product and use it because it's an extremely short checkout flow, and you don't have to sign up to do anything special to get Apple Pay, Google Pay, Alipay, WeChat Pay, global distribution into China, even if you want that. You get, all of this stuff is everywhere. So I don't know. I was just fascinated by that. And it's like all those features are in the product and people need it, but people don't understand that it doesn't need to be as hard as what I hate this word, but the industrial complex of e-commerce tells you.
Yeah.
So it's all locked into one thing. I said, I'm joining. And now the way that, okay, we're getting to this hype part. You asked me like, how did the hype of Elliot, how is this happening? How am I building this? It's not intentional. Honestly, I think B2B sales is extremely boring. B2B marketing is terrible. I don't want to go to a trade show, build out a conference floor setup that costs $500,000 and is there for a week and there's a backlight and everything looks great. And then we chop it down after a week and I've got 3 photos of it. And that's it. And I built the brand equity for the companies that already knew who I was, and for anybody else, I seemed too big for them to work with. It doesn't matter. I thought, give me that $500,000. What I'm going to do is create a consumer brand that sells an e-commerce platform. The difference is that the consumer of my product is the founder of a direct consumer brand.
Yeah.
A friend of mine has been saying recently to me, and it's been sticking in my mind, is if you were born in the 80s, you want to start a hip-hop group in the 90s. If you're born in the 90s, you want to start a skate team in the thousands. If you're born in the late 90s, early 2000s, it's 2020 and you want to start a brand. So the people that are consuming the content around all these emerging digitally native brands, they're the ones that want to start businesses. And I thought, let's build a brand that resonates with them. Let's build a business that connects with them and tells them, we know where you're going in the future. How are you building your business in the future? Or how do you see yourself building your business in the future? That's how we're going to support you with technology, but also be a brand that shows you that you can connect with us on that level. And we're not just a faceless tech company, $1 billion tech company that doesn't really get you. So that's the one part of that. You can ask me more questions, I guess, about that.
Well, you just clearly demonstrated why we're so excited to have you speak at the summit, because that was one heck of a monologue.
Jeez, I'm tired.
You've earned yourself some water or a break, whatever you need, but the excitement around that and my personal excitement and how we got connected was through one of those threads that you made on Twitter, where you were going through, and just even be more clear, piece by piece to these very kind of intimate, small details that were design choices that those brands had made as part of the checkout experience or the onboarding experience or the flow. But your eye for that detail, what immediately jumped out to me when I came across the first thread. It was mind expanding because I just didn't, out of practice, but also just a sensibility, not picking up on those little things that were happening. And that was an immense value to me, helped me think more about, what we do with the summit and what we do with Piper and other things like that, and advice that I might give an entrepreneur that would come across my way. But what's also incredibly important for people to understand is, just as you're thinking about personalizing the brand of Elliot, before that was your mission, you were focused on the Marco's personal mission. And by doing these threads, the opportunity set that came to you. So we kind of brushed over, we met Sergio, we hit it off and we went, but he had a technology company. He had this really cool product. He had options. He wasn't just completely completely starved for anyone that might potentially be interested. And the capacity to connect is highly driven through the content that you were doing. And you almost got lucky of sorts, but you made your own luck through doing that storytelling.
I mean, I would say luck is an interesting word, but I think luck is something you create by working hard. The opportunities have arisen. Is that arose? Since I started writing these Twitter threads. I just was sharing my knowledge freely. I have a friend who lives in California. He said, hey man, you should just write Twitter threads. Stop writing random shit about like how your dog's cute today and posting that. And I do that now.
Yeah.
But he's like, just commit to not doing that and just writing threads on stuff you believe for a couple months. So the first thread I wrote was a thread about Tracksmith, this brand out of Boston. I think they're out of Boston. And they basically focus on like runners and like runner culture. And that's like a kind of cult-like business or cult-like community already. So building a brand into that is really interesting. I wrote about that. I got like 6 likes, like literally 6 likes. And I was like, okay, I guess like that's better than the 4 I had when I was telling you what I had for lunch or whatever, right? So that's fine. I wrote another one. I think it was about ugly drinks, got like 11, 15 likes. Then I wrote one about hit water, got 30 or 40 likes. Then I wrote one, I don't know. And then it started going. And then I wrote one about Away. And I wrote this thread, and Jen Rubio, the CMO or head of brand, one of the co-founders of Away, saw it, retweeted it. This thing got like, and this is like all in the context of a very small DTC community.
Yep.
It got hundreds of like 400 or 500 likes, hundreds of retweets. It got picked up by every newsletter in the space. And that's kind of when it kicked. Like everything just happened. People started reaching out to me, wanting me to consult with them. And they're like, oh, you're a brand marketer, Marco. You're a brand marketer. So what is that? I'm just like a guy that sees things and wants to communicate it clearly. It happens to help that I'm not a square. And that's like maybe a pejorative term in some way, but I think I'm just like a normal guy. I just like what I'm doing. I'm technical. I understand culture. I not even understand it. I play with it. I try to tease out different things and see how product and marketing and culture all fit together and just write about it. And it seems very technical and actionable, but I just don't know how to talk about things in another way. Especially if I'm writing something down, I'm going to be on the internet forever. It might as well make sense and be useful. So anyways, that whole process led to Sergio reaching out to me and saying, I like the way you think. I need somebody like this who understands that the way that we need to build a business, a future of commerce business, cannot look like everything else before. You can't stand out against the 10 e-commerce platforms and all the global fulfillment provider platforms and I don't know, all the multi-currency, multi-language data centers, all of these different things that go into launching a global brand. You can't stand out against those by looking and acting and sounding like them. You have to sound like yourself. And I was talking to him, I said, well, what does yourself sound like? And for me, it's me. The reason I got this following, the reason why Sergio reached out is because I'm me, unapologetically. I don't know how to be different. I can technically pretend, but I don't really want to. So I thought, if you look at other e-commerce platforms, so let's say like BigCommerce, Magento, Salesforce, Commerce Cloud, Shopify, who is the CEO of those platforms? Maybe you know, maybe I know, but does everybody know?
Certainly not.
Certainly not. Is anybody even interested? Do you know who the VP, SVP, do you know who is responsible for your success of that company? Personally, can you reach out to them? Maybe on LinkedIn, but you got to know who you're looking for. I thought there are thousands of kids that will become business owners in the future. There are people that work in director of e-commerce roles or brand marketing roles at these companies, and they don't have a personal relationship with these brands, but I can create a business that has a personal relationship with that person at those companies. So now, from a brand perspective, what we're doing is a completely different approach to marketing than you've seen in most business-to-business environments. Actually, so when we talked, I think you said Ritholtz.
Ritholtz.
Yeah, Ritholtz, that's one. Actually, this takes a lot of this mindset from, I don't really read a lot of what David Perel says, but I read his stuff on Twitter a lot, and I've read the Naked Brands series that he has on his blog. The man is smart, but this idea of a naked brand, like you will be polarizing, people won't like you, but they won't have a choice to be interested in you. Or like to be, whether they want to be interested in you, they have to follow you. So for me, I thought all these brands out here that everybody has like the very boring blue and purple and like the triangle with your letter inside of it logo. I was like, let's not do that. Let's do something that stands out. Sergio had already picked a cow and he picked the color yellow. None of those don't fit together. And the name Elliot is a person. Those things together, that trifecta just is very different than the space than the rest of the businesses in this space. And then for me, I thought, let's put our faces out there. Let's be loud on Twitter. Let's be a little contrarian. Let's not be afraid to say what we think. And then let's put ourselves on camera. So right now, right here, we've got our videographer that we hired full time who is documenting all of our meetings, everywhere we go around the city, every person we're partnering with. You get to see me. And if you don't like me, okay, then don't use us. That sounds like a little dismissive, but honestly, I don't care right now because I'm trying to build a community of people that engage with me, people that want to trust me and grow with me. From a marketing perspective, that's a big way, content. And you're using this at Piper as well. Content. It greases the wheels for the bigger deals that might take 6 to 12 months to get done. You can get them done in 2 weeks because people already know you and they trust you and they see how you carry yourself. That's one area. The other area is how do you build a direct-to-consumer brand for a business-to-business company? And the direct-to-consumer angle, actually, I should probably say, what is direct-to-consumer?
Yeah.
Direct-to-consumer is a way of, from like an e-commerce or physical goods angle, it's selling your product from your warehouse and shipping it directly to that person. Or owning your own store, not going through a retailer. It is being able to have a direct relationship with your consumer. This is how everything you see, all these e-commerce sites online, everything you see, every Facebook ad, that's a direct-to-consumer business, most likely. What we're doing is taking this direct-to-consumer approach to business, like I said earlier, that consumer is the person at one of these companies. But I need to put a personality behind it, and I don't really want to spend the time crafting this fancy brand that has all these different aspects to it. Like, look, it's us, it's this team, this is who we are. And what I want to do now is for these brands that are already leading the space, that already have the following of the next generation of entrepreneurs. I want that they're already following these digitally native brands that are blowing up and getting a lot of cultural attention. I'm reaching out to them and saying, hey, remember me? We talked. Maybe I helped your business a little bit. I gave you some advice. You read my Twitter threads. Awesome. Do you want to do a collaboration with me and Elliot and your brand? You have this product. I have this brand. I will take aspects of my brand that I'm creating as a consumer brand and apply it to your ethos. And we will build a capsule collection of products, put them out, launch them. It will resonate with your community. It will put us in front of your community, and we'll power your whole tech platform. We'll do that because it's actually extremely easy for us to do. It's a great value add for them, and it's reciprocated for us. But now we get seen as a consumer brand, so that the 1,000 people that are really engaged with that brand, they're probably pretty creative themselves, and they're going to do something in the future, or they're going to go to a company that needs to do something in the future, and they're going to say, we should use Elliot. I already trust them. I trust Marco. I've seen him on Twitter. I watch his YouTube channel. I see him on LinkedIn when he drops some knowledge occasionally. And I bought this shirt that has his logo on it. And that's really the long-term plan. I just don't want to build a company that's boring because I don't want to work for or go use a company that bores me. That's just common sense. Like, nobody wants that. So why would I spend my time crafting something that looks like everything else?
Yeah, but to act upon it is part of what makes it the exception as opposed to the rule.
Yeah, but it's also, this is like a huge gap in the market. There's a huge space here where everything that is big is traditional and safe. And actually, they're brands to the founders of brands. They're not brands to your little cousin who's 16 years old that wishes he could buy Supreme.
Yeah,
I want to give them the option to say, you can buy Elliot. And that's a long road to get to the level of notoriety that Supreme has, but
that's also not the way that, and you might not even like this categorization, but a traditional B2B brand, that's counter to how a B2B brand has ever really thought. So you're talking about collabs, and we earlier in the conversation talked about Beyonce and Adidas doing a collab, and there's all these different athletes and artists that have collabed with other sneaker companies. And before that, that's really, I would say, it has roots in hip hop culture of one artist collaborating with another artist so that you can cross-pollinate audiences and get that mutual benefit. But doing that in a public-facing way, as opposed to, of course, B2B is very much about like, hey, you're powering us on the back end here. This agency does this thing for us over here. But to bring that front and center and make that a part of the narrative and the experience of interacting, that's a novel concept.
So there are two layers to this that I think are interesting. One is bringing it to the forefront. The reason I want to do that is because it's about community. How do you join a community if you're not part of the story? That doesn't mean like this. This is actually why I think a lot of these D2C brands that are focused on community building are actually kind of crumbling internally, is you don't have people that really want to be part of your community. You have people that like observing and the entertainment of the community. Yeah. But I want to give people the option to buy a piece of that journey. Buy a little product, a $5 keychain, or like a $50 scented candle or a $300 leather backpack. That's like, we only going to sell 10 of them or 15 of them, but that's exciting. That's a way that you can be part of that journey.
Yeah.
We are very active on social media, on Twitter, primarily on Twitter. We're building out our Instagram. We're building out our LinkedIn. You can literally DM me. You can text me. My phone number is 916-479-0795, and I will respond to you because I want to talk to the community. I won't be able to do that forever, but I can do it now because we're still relatively small. So by doing these collaborations in public, people can say, I see the brand that I liked over there, and I see Elliot over here, and oh my God, they're doing something together. I'm going to watch it, and I guess I can afford that. That sounds kind of cool. I'll buy that. And it's honestly like these things don't make us money. That's not the goal. We make money through our platform, but the goal really is to provide opportunities as a brand to build a community of followers that are highly engaged. Now, the other thing you said was about doing collabs in public. I guess musicians do this. I think about who are the best storytellers. Okay, you answer. Who are the best storytellers to you?
In the entire
world? I'm
world?
interviewing you now.
Damn.
Just like as a like a segment in modern culture. Who would you say the best storytellers are?
You're talking about like as a general population, not a specific person. Definitely the top rappers are all top storytellers. I would say that the best salespeople or founders that have a capacity to bring not just clients and customers in, but like that initial team. I think that the best founder has to have a story that you tell the team that gets them to be like, that's the direction I want to go.
Okay, so you hit it, nail on the head.
Yeah.
Specifically with rappers. I think rappers are the most interesting storytellers because they have a certain constraint in the way that they're able to communicate it. It's on the background of music. It's to a certain cadence, right? There's a meter that you have to have. It's 4/4 time, 3/4 time, depending on if you're Jay-Z or Kanye, if you're a little more creative. Otherwise, it's 4/4 time, and that's just standard hip-hop, right? But on top of that, how many albums does Jay-Z have? How many albums does Kanye have? How many albums does every artist have? But they're telling a very specific story on every song that you resonate with on an emotional level. And then half of their songs, they're giving up their platform to somebody else. They're saying, yeah, Kendrick, why don't you come on my song and give me a verse? And he's not right. I mean, they might collaborate on how to communicate or what it is they're going to be saying, but essentially he's giving his platform to somebody else. They're sharing an audience.
Yeah.
And if it works, it's great. And if it doesn't work, no one cares. Like, that's the crazy thing. No one cares. You have 25 tracks on a song or on an album if you're like maybe an older, like mid-2000s album.
Yeah.
Now it might be like 8 and you're on SoundCloud. But essentially you share the platform. And I know Jay-Z's whole catalog, but I can name you like 5 songs that I love of his. But this is the thing. Let's say 15 to 20 tracks per album, and let's say an album every year and a half or 2 years over the last 25 years, he has delivered hundreds, if not thousands of songs that he hasn't even released, and we only remember 5 of them. So this is why I don't understand why brands take so long to do these collaborations and like, okay, well, we need to do, like, I think like right now we just saw HomeAway do a collaboration with Venus Williams, one of them. Serena Williams, right? And then before that, the last one I saw was the Minions, and before that was Dwayne Wade. I mean, these are long breaks between these collaborations because there's a lot of like, got to protect our brand. Honestly, put out 100 of them, and half of them won't do anything, and the ones that pop are going to be so memorable that the rest just disappear. And that's how rappers approach it. That's how other artists approach it. That's how I want to approach it. I'm going to go to every brand that wants to work with me. If you are a brand that is interesting, and you're actually a business that has a community behind you and a following, reach out to me. And if we can do something dope together, let's do it, because I just want to be at the edge of culture with you.
So what's really interesting here, and I'm just kind of picking this up through what you're saying, is we've been talking about trust in the brand sense of like, how do you bring in the customer? How do you shorten the sales cycle? How do you do these things? But the other part of that is a sensibility of trust internally within your team. So someone, if we use HomeAway as the example, and whatever their lead time is into launching the latest collaboration, there is inherently some form of concern, anxiety from leadership of HomeAway. Are we making the right choice? Is this the right person to partner with? Are we going to be okay? Is really what they're boiling it down to. And in the very construction from the ground level of a firm that you're building, you have to be optimizing for an exceedingly high level of trust within your team in order to make this pace work. Because if you're having someone film you, if you're having someone where you literally are trusting them with your likeness, that's about as intimate as it gets. Your capacity to put trust there is a great stand-in for the trust that you're also going to put into the brand that you might collab with, and also recognize that one or two missteps when you put it up against that large body of work isn't going to sink you.
I don't know. Like, we've been friends for like a year now. You've seen me like say stupid shit on Twitter. If forget about me, your childhood friends, you've seen them make mistake after mistake after mistake, but you have a relationship with them. And because they're honest with you and they're open with you, you see it, it doesn't matter that they make mistakes.
Yeah.
Unless they completely burn you and are philosophically in indifference with the way that you carry yourself, you actually feel closer to them through every trial and tribulation and mistake that they go through.
Yeah.
And obviously I don't want to make mistakes, but we will make mistakes. But I'd rather put that out there. I'd rather have that be part of the journey with our community. They can see us. They can see that we're struggling with things, that we tried a collaboration and it fell flat on its face. And then the next one we did was dope. And the next one we did was even better. And then we went silent for a little bit and we came out with a whole bunch of new features. And like, I want that excitement to be part of our journey, not this like hyper crafted or like over analyzed process of releasing products and brand. So internally, yes, we have a high sense of trust. Sergio, me, and Clayton have an extremely coherent understanding of our brand. And we are learning how to be able to bring people on into that. We almost hired somebody the other day that seemed like a great fit. And then all of a sudden he was like optimizing for the wrong things in our offer. And I was like, I don't feel good. Like, I just feel like, oh, this guy's going to be an ego I have to manage for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And I literally don't want to manage anybody. I'm going to have to. I already have people under me that I have to write weekly announcements of what I'm doing and check in with them and have calls, and there's management. But I don't want to. I want to give people the independence in our team to do what they need to do and show that I trust them, because I need them to trust me when I do something big and crazy and go out there and have fun. And business is fun for me. It's actually an expression of creativity, the same way that when I was doing music, it was creative. Then I went to engineering. It was creative. I could build products. I was launching products every month, and then I realized this isn't going anywhere. So I need to focus in on one thing. And that's kind of how I started. Everybody does that, right? When you're younger, you can do 100 things. And as you get a little older, you realize I can just do one thing 100 times better.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got to this point. But now I have people around me that trust me. I have a community and a following of people online that actually believe that I know what I'm talking about, even when I don't even know if I know what I'm talking about. I'm just working it through in my head and sharing it publicly. And I think that's why my community was able to be built. My personal following was able to be built that way. That's why this community is actually the videographer. We hired him on Monday, or his first day was Tuesday. He flew in Monday night, and we put out our first pieces of content on, I guess, yesterday, Thursday. And we got like 30 to 40 quote tweets now. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it was an insane amount of quote tweets that were like, I love this. I love how they're communicating. I don't even know anything about e-commerce, but I'm bought in on this team. It's that transparency and trust. And we got to show that, because otherwise you're just a brand that you're a brand that people feel like you're selling to them. And I don't want people to feel like, oh, they're trying to make me buy into it, versus this is just who they are and I can like them or not.
So I've been listening really carefully to you now for 2 hours, because we went to lunch, doing the podcast now. We've been recording for 40 minutes. And what jumps out to me, and I've seen this through so many of the interviews that we've done, of the degree to which you are rooted in the mission of the company or the mission of your pursuit, and the deeply stimulating experience you have in the creative problem solving day to day of making this thing happen, and how in no way, shape, or form have I heard from your lips, well, this is going to make me so wealthy, or this is like this is all about that type of financial outcome in any way, shape, or form. Not to say that you don't worry about paying your bills or making certain things, certain accomplishments happen for you in your career. But I just want you to elaborate on that a little bit. But I also really want to just point that out as like, well, actually, before the cameras came on, Marco was just like, screaming about bills or something like that. Like that's just not the case. And I think that that's a really important recognition. In the same vein, what made me think of it was how this is just a creative pursuit for you. In the same way that music was or engineering was, it is more about a fulfilling endeavor than some sort of like single-minded focus of financial outcome.
I took this thing that I don't know how I feel about it. I took this test called the Enneagram test. I'm sure you've probably heard of this. And my wife told me to take it. And then my friend's wife told me to take it. And I think I landed this position of like a challenger. And I can relate to this. I don't know if I really buy into the whole thing, but a challenger and an achiever.
Yeah.
And this achiever thing is like running from this sense of meaninglessness. Like if I were to sit down and do nothing all day and just like focus on bills, focus on my life, just like the minutia of day-to-day life, I would not be happy. I actually want to create something. And when I say create something, it's not even create something that makes me money. It's create something that changes the lives of people around me or causes a paradigm shift, or at least spurs a paradigm shift at some point. I just want that to be, sounds like really cheesy. I want to leave somewhat of a legacy that my children or my grandchildren will be like, yeah, I guess he did something like that. And it's not so much that like I need validation. Not personal validation. I want to know that my pursuits are valid.
Why did you have to add the caveat that you think it was cheesy? Because I think about this a lot, but like that little caveat of like, well, this is cheesy. Like you're almost like hedging this statement of just talking about what you actually want. What do you think that is?
I think it's probably a lot of like cultural narrative around like wanting to have a big impact on the world is idealistic and frivolous. And I don't actually believe that.
I don't buy that at all.
But I think there's only one way that I can say it. And the common way of communicating it is I want to change the world. And that sounds cheesy because you've heard that 100 times.
Yeah.
But I kind of mean it.
Yeah.
Now let me go back to Elliot for a second. Elliot is a commerce platform, a global commerce platform. If you're thinking about Shopify is the e-commerce stack. Just that little layer of transacting, and they'll give you the order information and the address and whatever. Elliot does everything below that. And it seems people go crazy. How is that even possible? You guys launched 4 months ago. Sergio is one of the best e-commerce engineers I've ever met in my life. He's been doing it for 10 years. He built out all of the global e-commerce products and digital experiences for multiple billion-dollar brands that I won't say because that would just be boasting. Essentially, he's very good at what he does, and he thought, why am I doing this on contract for one-off brands? I can do this and make this a self-serve platform for everybody, because he wanted to build an equitable platform that levels the playing field for people all over the world.
Yeah.
Now, right now, we're very focused on the Western market, and I've been talking about the Western market a lot. But think about what happens if you're in Nigeria and you want to launch your brand or your product in Nigeria. You cannot build a large sustainable business in Nigeria within the Nigerian borders. Maybe Nigeria it's a wealthy country, but if you start in Africa, you have to sell internationally from day one, because your audience is not 300 million people in America that all speak the same language and use the same platforms. You have 30 countries in your region that speak different languages, that transact different ways, that communicate different ways, that receive packages and pay each other different ways. Like, all of this is happening very differently. And what Elliot does is it levels the playing field so that a startup in any country in the world, a single person starting a business anywhere in the world, has the same access to enterprise technology, the same enterprise technology that I would be selling to a multi-billion-dollar holdings company. Though that's insane to me. And I think we're very privileged here in the Western world that I don't even have to build a business to be a millionaire. I can go join a company and I can just work my way up the ladder, and the whole like American dream mantra, whatever. I can do that forever. In other parts of the world, building a business is a necessity for life, but the way that the world has changed from a technological perspective, the tools haven't caught up to enable commerce and growth in those regions like we have in the Western world. So if Elliot is essentially a free platform with no subscription that lets you sell your products globally to anybody all over the world where your audience is, what is stopping you from succeeding? What is stopping the wealth distribution from actually being redistributed. Now, this is like super idealistic, but why not?
Yeah.
What's the point of building something that isn't building towards an ideal future?
I don't think that you can tap into the energy required to do something as great, as big as what you're talking about without having that vision. I actually fundamentally don't think what actually animates a human, shorts the food you eat, shorts how much sleep you're getting. I don't think it is possible without that high-minded of a vision.
Also, dude, like money would be great.
Yeah.
I'd love to be super rich, but being super rich without having done anything to get that means nothing.
Yeah.
Because it's just like being a kid that gets to have like the Razor scooter that your dad bought you that you didn't earn anything. You just like asked for it and you got it. And when you're 15 and you realize that Christmas isn't real and your dad bought you a scooter when you were 8 that you didn't deserve, you're like, well, no wonder it ended up in the trash because I didn't care about it. And what I want to do is care about what I do and just have financial security. And I already have gotten to that point in my career. I can consult. I could literally stop this now and go make more money than I'm making now as a consultant. That doesn't matter to me. What I'm doing is interesting. It's actually all the advice I was giving to people when they were paying me. And when people couldn't pay me, I just gave them, like I said, that very simple, like, do this, do this, do this. It's very easy. Go try it. But now it's all built into the platform and anybody in the world can use it. That's fascinating to me. And I get to be part of putting that in front of people in a non-traditional way, in a way where brands are stories being told and communities being built. It is audience. It is product. It is not this idea of, like going into RISD and having a great arts degree and putting something together that you can then go show to a professor and have this like be measured on some rubric. There is no rubric. The rubric is being yourself in front of people and being vulnerable. I will not say being authentic because that is overused and authenticity is now inauthentic. It is being vulnerable and being ambitious. And actually, not even ambitious. Being who you are and showing every facet of that is what builds relationships and what drives sales and what drives brand and what drives the future. So we're already seeing that. We already see YouTubers crashing Shopify because they get 50 million sales in a day. And that why is there the infrastructure to sell to 200 million people not enabled for that person? Do you think that YouTuber just has like people who buy things in the Northeast? It's all over the world. Now that's how things are shifting from like a cultural perspective. You build an audience and you sell, but that's going to keep going. It's going to get even crazier. So we want to enable that. And we also serve all these enterprise clients with the global infrastructure that we provide, yada, yada, yada. We really do. It's great. But those pay the bills for the business.
Yeah.
But those don't move the culture. And I want to be able to have an impact. And what has an impact is moving the culture with the people that need our services from the ground up.
Well, if listening to all of this did not animate you, the listener, the viewer, to get your tickets for the Going Deep Summit, I do not know what will. That is the next opportunity to see Marco in person if you are in Pittsburgh. But if people want to connect with you in the digital world, see all the things that Elliot's up to, and follow along on this very exciting company that is still in the first inning.
Very much so.
Where can people go?
You can find me on Twitter at allthingsmarco. Pretty straightforward. From there, you can navigate to anything else I've done. And you can check out elliot.store. That is our website that kind of shows you what we do, how we can help you, and sign up. And if you have any questions, straight up DM me, text me. You have my number now, clearly. So, yeah.
So for the folks that are, I would say, less wait lists and being able to kind of like build and lead into a product launch is very well understood in more consumer-facing stuff, less commonly in B2B services. Talk a little bit about the wait list for Elliot.
So the wait list for Elliot is you sign up, you press get access, you fill out the information. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to launch at this date. This is how many orders I currently have, whatever. Basically, the only reason we have a wait list is because we're building out our team. And there was an article written about us. For example, an article was written about us a couple days ago, and we got like 1,700 signups in 24 hours.
Wow.
So we don't have the capacity internally to be able to support your questions, right? You're like, okay, well, how does this work? A lot of people have never sold anything online. So like helping somebody do that takes capacity. So we're prioritizing by people that we can actually get up and running with the least amount of effort or have the most potential to really scale and be a good honestly case study for us as a brand. So it's nothing personal. We will get everybody through and onto the platform, but we have to hire our success team essentially. That's the only reason there's a wait list there. Honestly, if you email me, if you DM me, if you text me and say, yo, I need to get on here and play with this, I will let you through. Like there's no barrier here besides the fact that you're lazy.
Go the extra mile.
Just go the extra 100 meters. It's very, very close. So,
13 steps.
Yeah, pretty much.
Word. That's going to be all linked in the show notes. You can find it in the podcast app where you're probably listening to this right now, or like every episode of Going Deep at goingdeepwithaaron.com/podcast. Before we let Marco go back to work, I want to give you the mic one more time and let you issue an actionable personal challenge to the audience.
Okay, so I can only what is this? Like hindsight is 20/20, and also all advice is what's the word? Like
take it at your own peril. Subjective.
Anecdotal.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. Basically, I'm going to tell you what I did and how I thought about it, and I think this will be an avenue for you to build an audience that will let you move to the next step. Focus on a channel that you can stand out on and have an opinion that you can communicate clearly through your expertise, or ask questions, or do whatever, but pick one thing and stick with it for a month. It doesn't even have to be social media. It can be putting on dinners. It can be putting on events. It can be getting on a phone call every week with a new person. Pick one strategy, have a strategy, and then pick one tactic and execute on that until you learn something new. And that will give you it will teach you something about what you know and what you don't know. And it will teach you where you need to go. And this is very relevant to relative to your own experience and where you're trying to go. But, you don't need to have a fully baked plan. You just need to take the one step. Like I said, my one step was don't write random shit on Twitter. Just write threads about other D2C brands on Twitter consistently every week. And I did it every Tuesday at noon. And so when I published it, I never actually got on time, but that's what I was aiming to do.
Yeah.
And that built me from 400 or 500 followers to 5,000 followers in 6.5 months. That's progress. Now, followers don't mean much, but I parlayed that into relationships and conversations. And that's what I would recommend for anybody listening is pick one channel, pick one avenue, and go down that as deep as you can until you learn something that allows you to pivot to the next thing. And just take action.
And really importantly, one of the things that like tricks people on the internet is you hear 5,000 and it's like simultaneously a ton and not a ton, because you see these other like super viral multi-million dollar or multi-million view, download, follower, whatever channels. But the reality is, if you're trying to break into an industry, if you're trying to break into a niche, if you're trying to take that next step forward, that is an enormous, sizable step forward. And as big as the world is, as big as the population of New York City is, it is incredibly easy to bump into someone in that niche together, and your capacity to build a little momentum and quickly extend yourself into whatever that micro community is really powerful.
For context, I run into people every week that pretend like they don't know me and then say, I've been reading your Twitter threads for months. This is from 5,000 people. If you're in your industry, and you make a name for yourself in any small way, people will know. People who care will know. So like 5,000 is not a lot, but the people that follow me are leaders of these companies, founders, executives, entrepreneurs, people who want to be entrepreneurs. That's who I've built a community around, and you can do the same thing. It just takes focus and action and consistency. Actually, if you take nothing away from everything I just said, which is a little bit of a ramble, be consistent about a tactic for more than a week, and you'll start to see some results.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, man. That was awesome.
Yeah.